Hello and welcome back. I am Darcy Darkness, and this is Confessions from the Dark Side. How are you all in this wonderful community? And today, we have a bit of a different skinny stony time. It's based on fact, as I usually do with this sort of topic, but it's a bunch of history, lore, experience, and how I feel a lot of horror movies may have used this hotel, this building, as inspiration for their movies and their stories that they bring to life on the big screen. So, welcome everyone. I'm going to do the disclaimer and then I'm going to explain to you what we're going to do today. So, I am full of so much adult content that some of you think this isn't necessary and some of you think this isn't needed. If you are one of those people, then thanks for checking us out. I'll say this only once. If you can't stand the heat, then get the fuck out of my kitchen now. For everyone else who likes what we have here, then regular scheduled program will continue. Shall we get started? Are we ready? And as I said, this is Confessions from the Dark Side, and this is Confessions from the Dark Side presents Overlooking the Crescent Hotel Conspiracy. So grab yourself a drink. Let's get comfy to hear what we think of this topic, this whole conspiracy. Me take you on a dark mystery tour of where we discuss everything on this topic. Whether it's based on reality experience or in history of the weird yet wonderful, the dark and the magical, the stories we find that are so unbelievable yet they are so true, and we wonder what sort of world do we actually live in if this evolves through time and never really resolves itself. Let's get into it. I feel this is going to be a long one, so join me, Darcy Darkness. Are you sitting comfortably? Well, what are we covering today? Well, how many hotels can be described as being the real overlook? Have you stayed in a hotel that gives you the heebie-jeebies? Do you enjoy the feeling of the heebie-jeebies? Let's face it, we do here. Are these your vibes for life? I think so. Is there stories you have heard that and you think, oh, that's strange, I like that? And you think to yourself, that should be a movie or a show or book or game or whatever? Why hasn't that happened? Then look no further. We are starting off with a suggestion that I got from an amazing Twitch streamer that I absolutely love and I do mod for, and her name is Medusa's Revenge. She is a very sassy lady and she is awesome, and I'm just really happy to be part of our community. And also her trusty sidekick that day was another Twitch streamer by the name of batnugget69 underscore 420, and we were talking about supernatural and not this we were talking about the show, but we were also talking about the supernatural as a topic and how they are very passionate about that. Medusa lives not that far from the hotel that we're talking about today, the Crescent Hotel, and she has been to it a few times, and she has described how she felt when she was in the place, and it was like cold spots, and it just like a really eerie feeling. But it seems to be everybody feels that way, whether you're looking from the outside in or whether you're looking from the inside out. Everybody still has an experience, it seems, and people go to this hotel to feel that experience. So again, is it all in their head or are they actually experiencing it? Everybody is different. And I absolutely love everything with mystery and is dark and has some sort of history and lore behind it. And this hotel does have that. This hotel has a lot of similarities to the Overlook Hotel in The Shining, the iconic masterpiece that was written by Stephen King and directed by the visual storyteller Stanley Kubrick. The Outlook Hotel seems like the place of mystery and terror of biblical proportion. What if I told you there was a place that was just like this, which is steeped in history and mystery? So many tales, some will take you to places in your imagination you never thought existed, and others will have you second guessing yourself and wondering if anyone else felt that too. So let's start with a brief history of the Crescent Hotel, shall we? So we can envision this place in all its glory from the start, where it all began. Then we can compare what similarities of this place to the horror movies that have obviously been an inspiration. The Crescent Hotel was built in 1886 to host the stay of the rich, the famous, and the elite. Sounds about right, doesn't it? So even in the 1800s, people were clout chasers of things they never have or had, but good to see things really change. The designer of this Victorian beauty is a man named Isaac S. Taylor. Taylor himself was born in 1850 in Nashville and he studied at the St. Louis University. He graduated in 1868, although some say it was actually 1869. He worked at George I. Barnett's firm right up until 1881. He was part of the design and collaboration of the second Southern Hotel, as the original hotel was destroyed due to fire in 1877. The hotel was said to be iconic and monument, but was upgraded with marble interior, and it was so sad to hear it was demolished in the 30s. Taylor in 1894 then went on to find his own commissions in building a portfolio of his craft building beautiful buildings that encapsulated a style that many may have not risked at the time, yet he'd excelled in breaking away from traditional designs and builds to create these magnificent buildings and setting the bar higher than his peers at this point. With his own firm, he had a better control, and it seemed for his creative vision, instead of having others dampen his creative spark, he could quite happily express it in any way he sees fit by being his own boss. Again, sometimes it's all about taking that leap, that step others may be too afraid to, but it seemed to pay off in Taylor's favour. For now, anyways. This hotel, however, stood out from the rest, not only from the outside, but through its stone interior. It was ahead of its time and stood out along the city, yet Planters House Hotel, much like the redesigned Southern Hotel he collabed on, sort of faded away, became office space, and then that building was eventually demolished in 1976. A piece of iconic history ahead of its time, removed from existence. And I always said, it must be so sad to see a piece of history, an architectural masterpiece. It's not just a building, but an identity of not just the creator, but the people who grew up there, the people who have seen the building age as you age. It still stays the same to you from like the first time you see it, and when it's gone, it's just this heavy feeling that once again there is no longer there. I see creations like children for the ones who are at the heart of projects such as this, as everything is put into it. Heart, soul, love, wonder, everything, a little part of him has died every time they demolish, I feel, their work. In this case, it's Taylor's buildings and his designs. He went into commission sites in and around St. Louis. At this point, it seemed all buildings were being demolished to make way for a new civic centre and municipal courts. He successfully commissioned the Jefferson Memorial Project given to the city of St. Louis. There's a fun fact here, Mr. Isaac Taylor had the largest cranium, his head. Yes, the head on his, neck, not the head between his legs, or I do not know about that. So TMI, I have no idea if he had a big cock. So Mr. Isaac Taylor had the largest cranium and would boast about the full size of his head, as he wore the largest hat at that point of the team, which was 8 3/4 inches. And again, I'm talking about his head with his actual brain inside attached to the top of his body, and not the appendage between his legs. I don't know if he had an 8 3/4 inch cock. He could have. You never know. Cranium size could be penis size. Who the hell knows? My brain went somewhere else again. Yeah, it's Darcy. What can I say? Taylor didn't seem to stop when, even with World War One being in full swing, he still remained on projects and kept on working. He designed the Mercantile Trust Company Bank in 1917. Apparently, once finished, the building was said to cost $500,000, which is closer to 12 million today. Inflation, people. And that was just a little backstory of the creator, the designer, the architect who had the vision for the Crescent Hotel. Basically, I was wanting to tell you about discuss what his actual qualifications were and his experience in architectural design, so we could get a rough idea of where he was and the buildings he designed to get to where he was with the Crescent Hotel. So Eureka Springs, it's the history of the town now, was founded in 1879. It was also named in 1879 and was made famous for its healing waters that brought thousands of visitors here. The population grew rapidly from 1879 to 1881 and later became known as the city of the first class, and then became the fourth largest city in Arkansas. As the city started to grow, so did its surroundings and the people. And in 1882, the Eureka Springs Improvement Company brought the railroad. This opened up so much for Eureka Springs. This has allowed citizens of Eureka Springs the freedom to develop amenities for its citizens, which then created a lot of wealthy connections through other avenues and building a more robust community with connections to St. Louis, and this helped with the building and evolution of the community. There was a huge boost in properties being built here to accommodate for the fast ever-growing popularity of Eureka Springs, that the turnover for residential properties soared in 2 years. This included streets, an electrical trolley, water and sewage lines, and of course the main event that we are discussing today in 1889, the Crescent Hotel. Still, all these years later, up to 2,000 properties still exist, which is quite remarkable. Everything that has happened in the world since Eureka Springs was founded. Such a small town that was rediscovered ended up becoming a fast booming place with around 15,000 population in such a short time. But the town became the place to be, and the springs brought people here for many reasons. So an expansion would have had to have taken place to accommodate all the new traffic, and the expansion in the population was necessary. What was so special about the water in Eureka Springs? The history of the springs dates back to the Native Americans, native people who actually lived there who were known as the Peladonians. And they lived here thousands of years ago. And the original people who lived here, they also were known as the Dalton culture. The native people knew even back then the importance of water and how it is used for healing, which it isn't any different on how water is today. We know about the properties and importance of water to us as humans and to the world. And since 1858, Dr. Alva Jackson used the spring for medicinal properties as a therapeutic aid to help with many diseases and ailments. Springs over the world have been used to help with a range of health conditions and ailments, and certain minerals in the springs help the body that have become beneficial and can range from person to person. And what they need to elevate to that individual and these springs, well, that for Eureka Springs. The history and the lore of this wonderful land explains how many actually use the springs for medical or healing purposes. But as you can imagine, all these people coming to the springs, yes, it's good for the town, but let's face it, when there's too many cooks, you know what happened. The hotel. Well, the Crescent Hotel's construction started in the year 1884 and its completion was in 1886. This hotel, like many others by the architect, went in a lot of details and thought went into creating this wonderful building, making it the landmark it is today, where the hotel is situated looking out. When you see the pictures of the hotel, it's this magnificent giant building and you can literally see clouds. It's so tall, and the way some people have captured it, obviously, from like the top down, it literally looks like you're in a different world looking down. Like the hotel is basically camouflaged by the clouds or the mist. It's one of those hotels that if I ever went there, I would have to stay there for more than one night. That's the thing. There's just so much to take in. It would be a very overwhelming time for me to go to somewhere like this. The views for days, because it's such a large building, you can see all the beautiful scenery from the pictures. Just obviously, from whatever floor you're at, the higher you are, think of what you're seeing. You're seeing like such a expanded view of beautiful surroundings, and it looks absolutely glorious, to be fair. Just everything been seen from parts of the hotel, then now here now. Do you know what I mean? So it just looks beautiful, and from the description and the events held here, bring a lot of vibes of The Shining to me. A hotel on the top of a town with nothing much around or close by would be a secluded place, as if they used in The Shining, in the movie, that you're on your own with virtually the wildlife and nothing much else. And the scenes from inside the hotel of the movie give me the type of view of how an old school, regal looking architectural brilliance would be, to still be standing after all this time, to have been part of so many memories and events and so many different guests. The ballrooms would have been exquisite, the lavish parties and guests in their Sunday best, having fun, creating memories, meeting new people, having fun. And in The Shining we see this. Yes, it's all obscure and Jack is at breaking point, but this hotel's full existence and full history makes the perfect example of the Outlook Hotel for many reasons. Even though Stephen King says it's a different hotel, but you can tell where Stanley Kubrick's actually taking the book and his vision and also his inspiration. There is a lot of the Crescent Hotel in there, in my own honesty, and a few other people as well. When the seasons became slow, the owner leased the hotel between 1902 and 1934 to Frisco Railroad. Again, in this time, slower season could make or break businesses. With everything happening in the world at this time, things would become slow and less visitors would be able to come, so renting to another company isn't so far-fetched. And it still happens even today. Everyone has to make money to survive and live for basic needs. The hotel became an educational facility for young women here. The women who came here had given the college a reputation of excellence, attracting students from different backgrounds with a love of knowledge and to pursue personal growth and empowerment, which all women who came to attend their studies here were successful in this. Still to this day, this time where the hotel was used as an educational centre, there is a legacy of this within the walls of the Crescent Hotel. Even to this day, the hotel has been here so long, it has so much history and lore of its own. If only the walls could talk, I wonder what they would say. Through this time when the hotel was an educational haven, the ownership of the hotel changed in 1925 by Claude Fuller, who was the former mayor and US Congressman from Arkansas, and Albert G. Ingalls, who was the former mayor of Utica Springs at the time of the purchase and the ownership of the hotel. 1937, notorious con artist Norman Baker, yes, came to the hotel to embark on manipulation it seemed, telling its locals and anyone who would listen that he could treat and cure cancer. Yes. A brief history on this guy is that he was a con artist and a serial killer. Does this shock you with the name gives me psycho vibes? Especially knowing that Norman Bates' family ran a hotel, even though it's apparently based in Ed Gaydon. The hotel sticks out a lot being out of town and creepy. So let's see, what do we know about Norman Baker? The famous Norman Baker, who's a bit of a dick. He was born in Iowa. Bet they don't want people knowing some of these. Youngest of 10 children, I bet his parents wished they stopped at 9. He was a high school dropout. Figures followed in his father's footsteps and became a machinist. Now, Ed Gein, hello. He became an illusionist and hypnotist after viewing a mentalist show. Is this like a Chris Angel type of thing? Oh dear Lord, there was a Chris Angel back then. Why am I not surprised? He got married and settled back into normal life as he did before the on tour freak show, and he went back to the job he had before and also an inventor. He had a patent for the calophone, which is a portable steam organ. His patent had made him a handsome sum of money, but with these types, it's never enough, always looking for more money at any cost. The patent was worth 200k then, which is closer to 3 million now. Again, inflation. Went into radio, wanted to build his audience by giving his audience the real truth and honesty. His real truth and honesty, I want to clarify that. Yet he conned many out of their life savings for cancer treatments like a decade later, but hey ho, how the tide changes. He apparently broke the rules and violated them during his broadcasts. I think during these times is where they feel they can get away with it, as they are providing a service and no one will challenge them. So they have a god complex and not giving a fuck, kind of like the people who run the world who just don't give a fuck now and just do what suits them without the consequences of their actions. Sounds like a killer in the making here, don't you? He drew around 50k of listeners back then. That's crazy. That would be like 5 million probably now, which was huge back then. Sounds very cult-like more now, wanting to go out into the world and broadcast to people so he can reach more people. Cult leader. So back then, a show of his broadcast would be around 3k, but was closer to 45k now. He even got a private White House meeting for helping the president at that time, Hoover, win over the Midwest and gain politics. Again, politics, greed, and crime. Well, it's all secret handshakes, blood oaths, not surprising. The world is messed up even back then. Why was this man so popular? He had the gift of the gab, the silver tongue, who could sell the springs to the natives even though it already belonged to them. That's how he did it, through sheer manipulation and deceit, so fitting in with politicians. Isn't so far-fetched now, is it? He was a lover of conspiracies, and due to his show being broadcast when working men were at home having their evening meal, he had an audience that moved him with him and listened and took in everything, as everything he said was gospel. So it was a generation of Facebook before we knew it. Blamed vets for a breakout of TB, claiming they were falsifying tests and documents. Yes, the cancer savant blaming others and lying about the outcomes, yet he was on his way to do that himself to humans. Short memory now, doesn't he? His I have a cure for cancer, but I am keeping it a secret so the medical association doesn't steal it and make money off of it by not helping people who need it the most. Did he not realise what he was doing was the same thing? American Medical Association would test it and realise he was a fake, and that he himself was the biggest charlatan of all. He had a custom roadster fitted with bulletproof glass. Oh, here we go. And he wore the finest of purple and lavender attires. He sounds like a 20th century pimp. Baker got into business with another quack and they created this cancer cure, which the ingredients that weren't so hard to come by and made no sense why there would be a cure, why this would be a cure. So a secret proprietary blend of herbs and spices, watermelon seeds, corn silk, clover, and water. They chose 5 patients for this secret experimental treatment and all 5 died. No shit. But they claimed they made a full recovery, yet they didn't. Hello, receipts and proof. He became one of those spiritualistic godlike healers travelling to towns, speeches, the shows, etc., then administering the cure for all to see. Opened this first clinic in 1929. He actually had proper staff. Chiropractors, osteopaths, and diploma MDs mastered of the profession. Sounds like He-Man by the power of Grayskull. Home to the masters of the universe. Norman Baker and the Quacks, and how I stole your money and sped up your cancer. In 1931, his license was removed by the FTC for vulgar, immoral, and indecent. Really? It took that long to figure that out? At least it did. They did it. It should be the end of the story, yet it is not. So, unable to practice medicine, which he shouldn't have been doing in the first place, not being a doctor, he brought in real doctors. Quotations, meaning I was doing quotations there, meaning a random person that he would be able to charge patients $1,000 per secret cancer fighting procedures that he adapted over the time to include carbolic acid, yes, nasty stuff, which causes the skin to burn and goes from grey to black over time. It eventually falls off, but the damage to the burn and the numbness people were having this injected into them, not just being put on their skin, it was injected into their bodies, and sometimes multiple times. Also vomiting and convulsing, and it decreases your brain process of alertness. Again, they used it in the Second World War during euthanasia in the concentration camp. He was putting this in the cure for cancer. Fucking savage. Thought the American Medical Association had it in from, and yes, they most likely did. They wanted to warn people about people such as Norman Baker manipulating sick people into parting with their money for treatments that were untested and unlawful and would most likely speed up their death and not cure them. He tried to sue them for libel and defamation in the sum of 500k, which again would be closer to probably about 50 mil today. He had no witnesses to stick up for him, no shit, as they had all died after the treatments. Then he fled to Mexico, because that claims innocence now, doesn't it? Running from your problems now, doesn't it? He was charged with practicing medicine without a license. Finally, it took that long that he fled because people knew he was a liar. Did it stop there? Well, obviously not. Can they ever just fuck off and stay away? No, they clearly cannot. He became a bitter man, blaming the Medical Association again and everyone involved, who stopped his work and claimed to still be able to cure cancer. He is but consistent, even though the Kool-Aid he is drinking is dodgy. Please don't join in. So he tried to run for mayor in Iowa, denied, but still, in connections that had led him giving himself up. And to deal with this, he had to spend 1 day in jail, and pay a fine of $1,000. But he had to leave Iowa for good, making him some other state's problem. So pretty much he got banned from his home state. So he is a fresh new start in a new place, but he's still the same mentalist that thinks he is the saviour to the sick and how he is the founder of the cure for cancer. Most people read the history of the hotel and think this is Stephen King land or Dean Koontz. It is sounds very fictional, but this is real. This guy is a real person and he did a lot of shit. People weren't a fan of his interior decorating skills within the hotel, as it looked like a circus. Apparently he did this to cheer the patients up. Most thought it was absurd to the style of hotel that it is, because the decoration didn't fit right with the hotel. And if you're dying of cancer, do you really want to see a scary fucking freak show? Maybe me, yes, but everybody, I doubt it, want to see scary clowns. Lots of people are scared of fucking clowns, for fuck's sake. Let's scare them to death while we're poisoning them. Woohoo. I shouldn't say that, but he literally was doing that. He even transformed the Crescent Hotel into the Baker Cancer Clinic. He was given many titles of visionary healer, but my goodness, even now, if there was a cure for cancer, it wouldn't even be made available for you or me, only the elite, of course. Baker called the hotel Castle in the Air. So many horror and psychological thrillers have this vibe of a building in the sky looking down. Like, the ones that are, like I said, I described before, there's like, it's so tall that it looks like, it's being camouflaged by clouds and mist. So it'd be like, for a horror movie, it could literally be like a different dimension looking down, like you get with Poltergeist, and you also get with, again, The Shining and many other kind of haunting type shows. They kind of has a whole castle in the air type thing. He was referring to his clinic as being this way, a castle in the air, like he's a savior basically. And he gave this to his future patients, this view of enchantment and mystery. So back then, seeing such a descriptive set of words would entice people to want to visit, spend their money on tinctures and procedures that could heal them and their loved ones, because anyone would save their most dearest to have some extra time with them. We all would, even to this day. So again, cashing in on people's sadness, people's loss, a bit of a dick. After his work being questioned again by the American Medical Association, and his wild claims of this procedure and clues, the man got himself caught in 1940 and he was arrested and then went to jail for mail fraud, for taking money from gullible sick people and preying on the vulnerable. But from his own mistakes again, the universe does what it does when she does it. And it's for a good reason. Shame on you. Yeah, I actually found out from one of the YouTube videos I watched where people who have actually went on the ghost tours and things like that, that he actually extorted money off of the families, that when their family members had died at the Crescent Hotel, that he was extorting them for money, and he'd already did autopsies on them, removed their organs and things like that, experimented on their bodies and things. He was extorting the families so he would release the bodies. So he was holding the bodies until they paid up. So not only did they most likely clear the people's bank accounts when they were living, their short life left, but extorted the family as well. And that's why he went to fucking jail, not just because of mail fraud, because he was fucking being an absolute cunt of a man. Yet, while he ran his clinic, he made some adaptations to it and has said that this personal addition showed his passions and his personality that he brought to the hotel, and how it was his distinctive designs and remodeling showed a man of many talents, including the escape route he built in his office on the first floor, which he had hidden in a staircase. Again, very horror-like, very mysterious, and a lot of older buildings have secret passageways for exits and escapes. This has been done for hundreds of years around the world in grand buildings for protection for of the people living there. Is also featured in a lot of TV shows, movies, books, and games. Also, wouldn't mind some secret passageways of my own room with within a room within a room feel. Keeping a secret, can you keep it? During the building of the hotel, a stonemasonry man by the name of Michael died while working. He fell from where he was working to the room that has the most significant activity in the hotel, which is room 218. It's similar to the popular Stephen King movie 1408, where John Cusack goes to a hotel and people want to either stay in that room or they don't want to stay in it because of the shit that happens. No one wants to stay in it because there's a strange phenomena that happens. And it all started while the hotel was being built originally, and still to this day is the room we all want to know about. There's also a few rooms that a significant amount of paranormal activity happens in as well. Do I feel personally that the hotel would have been doomed about being built in that town that people claim that was nothing but was worked and lived in and on by the native people that were most likely drove out of their ancestral home? It happens and it continues to happen. And with these type of behaviours and treatments, many believe that the universe will get to the people that have wronged them somehow. And with deaths and strange doings and happenings over the decades, could just be the natural order of what has happened in Eureka Springs and is now being dished out by the universe. And this is the universe giving the original people their land back in a way of redemption and punishment, even though they aren't part of it if they are living in it. Again, we see this in an episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer at Thanksgiving. They're all plagued with diseases. Well, Xander is, of the native people of, and in a time where this was the ancestors of the land paying back what they had done to them, even though it wasn't the Scooby Gang that did it, but they were digging where they had found evidence of the people. And again, it's called the universe knows, and she will come for you at some point and punish all of the wrongs of the people that have come before us. The young women who attended the college, these are the victims that I'm going through. Another victim who sadly lost her life at the hotel attended the college for education and knowledge for young ladies. The lore was that she leapt to her death due to bringing shame on herself and her family for being pregnant and unmarried At this time, even up to now in some places being pregnant without a husband is forbidden. Back then, the woman herself and the child would have been subjected to hateful violence from even her own family for bringing this trouble to their door. So an easy way out would be to take her own life. As sad as it sounds, some people felt that they had no other choice but to do this. It said the school was for only girls, so having a pregnancy shocked them, thinking that young girls weren't interested in sex at that time. Come on, even back then, not everybody married a virgin, and the ones that did, well, affairs, sorry, but it did happen. Why would you not test out the goods before you bought them, basically? Because a marriage certificate is basically a piece of paper of ownership. Again, kind of freaks me out about the fact we all change, and well, so does that also. At 10 p.m., mist is seen seems to roll down. This was said to be the young girl or the young woman who tragically passed away after her fall, known as the girl in the mist, as we see a shadow of her from the balcony and then a dark masculine figure also. Another school opened its doors at the Crescent, only stayed open for 4 years, and again it went the same way. This just a lack of funds. It was a huge hotel, and it cost a lot of money to run and keep open. If you weren't getting enough of an influx of students, then there would be no money to keep the place open, as it does even now. So when all that kind of business dries up, they need a fresh new popular thing and attraction to bring people back and bring life into the town and the hotel in the hopes of generating income from the tourists so that they could open the hotel up and stay open for business. Here he comes to wreck the day, but none other than Norman Baker. I keep saying Norman Bates. It's not a coincidence. I really don't think so. He bought the hotel for $40,000, a steal as the hotel had been closed for a few years and needed a lot of work done, which he then renovated, spending another additional 50k on this, and apparently not many liked his finesse. It looked like the inside of a circus tent. I'm not sure if this is him trolling as he was stealing and lying to the patients about having a cure and saving them while making fun of them in the process of his interior design, but he said he did it to cheer up his patients as they were dying and needed a laugh. Well, you sir laughed all the way to the bank, or was that your secret staircase? He spent $1 million on advertising the hotel and the secret to curing cancer to bring in all the patients to spend money at the hotel on these procedures, which would then boost local tourism, boost morale of the town, all of which he was killing these tourists and patients with these untested and dangerous procedures that people were lining up to pay $1,000 a pop for. They were referred to the staff as machine guns as they were administering so many of these concoctions to the patients. Where have we seen that recently? All treatments the same, no adaptations. He used the same procedure for all, and basically no one size fits all with cancer, especially. He again could sell you anything and didn't care about the consequences of what it did to them, just as long as it didn't happen on site. He created a wing of the hotel for people who weren't seeing results and away from the other patients. This was known as the psychiatric ward. Now, where have we heard this? Hello, House in Haunted Hill. Hello, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And Supernatural. And oh, Kingdom Hospital. Another Stephen King adaptation. This wing of the hospital and rumours were swirling around town about suspicious activity and what was really going on at the Crescent Hotel. He then took it up a notch where he experimented on corpses in the morgue. Now, this guy has no medical license, he never had one, and was banned from practicing. He also deemed people cured as they left the clinic, only for them never to make it home as they died on their way back to their families. Some people didn't even make it back. Some people's bodies were sitting in that hotel for God knows how long. They didn't even have refrigerators back then. It was ice. So think of the smell, man. It'd be absolutely reeking. Making Eureka Springs look like hell on earth. No one would want to come here knowing all of this, yet it still managed to go on for so long. When these types of charlatans start fucking with corpses, you know they are never the full shilling. And that's them themselves a few sandwiches short of a picnic and really need to be taken out of this, yet they are never taken out. They always end up remaining there, and still people will believe them even though they know it is wrong. When you're dying, you will try anything, most people, to stay alive. There are, however, no tunnels beneath the hotel as many thought. I bet he wished there was. I wonder what would be found in there if there was. In the time of the clinic being open for business, 44 patients died. That's the recorded amount of numbers of patients, not the ones that left the hotel and didn't make it home. ones that went home and died weeks later, or people that died on site or were in the psychiatric place. There's not an actual accurate number. These are the only ones that are actually been of evidence and have evidence, basically. There's nothing else. No autopsies or investigations took place as these patients were already at death's door. But he still had a morgue, and he also still did performed autopsies on these people. Couldn't really sell their organs because he was putting that carbolic acid in them, which can destroy your internal organs. So what the fuck was he doing? They came to the clinic of their own accord for a treatment that may prolong their life, as they had no other options. Sad but true, still disgusting. People believe he was a serial killer and that the clinic was just his way of covering up his sick and twisted lust to bring pain and suffering to an already sick and dying group of patients, which I do agree. He could do this knowing that he had the complex of God, but also the harbinger of death. When he was having medical professionals administering the treatments, he could watch while they suffered. As they handed over their savings to this man and his cure, he could watch them slowly slip away, and it was all down to him. He was a wealthy man and he had it all, but he wanted more, and him becoming a killer through trying to seem to be doing the right thing and helping others. It flew under the radar for such a long time that the damage was already done. He already had a taste for taking lives and he didn't give two fucks about it. And it didn't stop him either. So like I said, the carbolic acid is a poison and it causes organ failure to a lot of patients who died, and the causes like this, and the people didn't bat an eyelid because they were dying anyway. And again, shame on the family, shame on everyone who knew that he was lying, shame on you fucking all. The same item was used in, like I said earlier, in euthanasia of victims in the Nazi concentration camps during the Second World War. After being caught via the postal fraud thing, the 3-week trial with the two other doctors had him sent to prison for 3 years. 3 years with a 4k fine. Not good enough even back then. He also defrauded his followers with a newsletter that was around $4 million then, but by today's inflation, this would be $78 million. Let that fucking sink in. Not only did he screw people over with his newsletter, with his shite and his conspiracies, he killed a bunch of people, he took money off them, and then took money off their families, and he only got 3 years in prison. Then after he was incarcerated, they found out he was embezzling around $1 million, and his secretary helped him hide it and steal from the corporation's bank account. Still was never charged for it, though he seems to always get off easy now, doesn't it? Because he knows so many fucking people, all those politicians and all that shit that he did for the President Hoover and all that shit. He's going to have fucking his hand in a few pots that way. When he got out of prison, he tried creating another clinic. Yes, he did. This was shut down, thankfully. And then he resorted to living on his yacht in Miami. Again, not a cheap way to live, but hey, where he ended up getting cancer of the liver. He refused treatments, remember. He was the con man who con-stick people, but he wouldn't put his own cure in himself to help his cancer. So what does that tell you? Didn't want to poison himself, didn't mind poisoning strangers and causing them pain. He ended up in a sanitarium in Battle Creek, where he remained there until his death in 1958 at the ripe old age of 75. He got his 75, yet he managed to take people out, shorten their lifespan, and cause them excruciating pain in the last days of their life. And weeks. Some people lasted weeks, and probably most likely wanted to die after a few days, and they lasted weeks. None of which gave him any time to reflect on what he did to the vulnerable people, his lies, his evil, and he got away with a lighter sentence every time. And yet he got to live his life. He got cancer, yes, but he got to live his life after taking a documented 44 people's lives. Not the undocumented ones that no one will ever know the fucking number of, which again, undocumented, we'll never know. This usually grows when it's actually properly researched years down the line that he's killed maybe hundreds, if not thousands of people, because they were undocumented at that time, then they're lost, so therefore, again, he couldn't be accountable. He himself will know how many he took. He will. All serial killers do. All people who kill people know exactly what they do, even when they claim they don't, they fucking do, because that's their hobby, technically, them being a killer and doing what they do. That is their interest, they know. They become obsessed, so they do know. The hotel continued to change ownership, as I said. The sheer size of this hotel and the upkeep, you would need a small fortune to keep it running and have to have something that kept the tourists and guests coming back, and some people have big ideas but not know how to execute them, making it a waste of money. Plenty of hotels here in Scotland are run by things like the National Trust, etc., to prevent our history falling into disarray. I feel there is some sort of omen in this hotel, the deaths over the years, the darkness from which the land it sits on, sacred lands being taken from the natives, always has an omen attached to it, bringing everyone to the springs and using it for greed and not sharing its properties as it was meant to be, could have a catastrophic ending. Is this why the hotel always ends up changing hands? Is there another evil at play here? It wasn't until the 1970s people started to talk about the strange vibe the hotel had given them when they stayed there, and the weirdness of rolling fog at 10 p.m, the figure jumping to her death, the weird smells, the cold spots all around the hotel, feelings of being watched or lurking sensation. Now that would be a voyeur's dream. From what I have read online from the bar where Baker had his lounge, they have drinks named after him, other hidden gems. In 2019, a groundskeeper found bottles of human flesh, which were said to be Baker's from his experiments after death. How many in the secret ward were experimented on as they were suffering from reactions and side effects of the cancer treatment, very House and Haunted Hill, and Dr. Frankenstein of him. Was the hotel/clinic a front for him to get into his thick and twisted fantasies of becoming a saviour to the sick? Yet all it did was give him the fuel of I can take your life and you can trust me. Him manipulating patients, do you think he used his power of hypnosis and his treatments as aftercare even? As I wouldn't put it past him to be experimenting with treatments of the mind because he was a sick wee puppy. We know this, and the only experience he had with this was when he was a member of the travelling circus. A very American Horror Story in that aspect. In 1946, another change of hands in ownership and the hotel went under renovations. Like I said, I've discussed a few of the deaths and stuff, but it comes in and out of the next part that I'm going to discuss. Having the Crescent Hotel situated and built here on the top of this magical place, steeped in history and mystery in Eureka Springs, offering a deluxe stay in a tranquil and serene environment even back then would have been seen as pure unadulterated luxury. And to be there and stay there would show how affluent one was, and it would be the status symbol again in the rich, famous and elite world. This would be their version of showing their worth, and is no different to how this world acts today, and everyone else for that matter. The Crescent Hotel is situated in a stunning beautiful valley with views of so captivating that you wonder, is this historical landmark really as dark as they say it is? Looks can be deceiving, we do know that. Could this piece of architectural history that has these picturesque views of the whole town be as unusual as the experience some customers and people who have grown up here have been through real? Makes you wonder, with all this beauty, there is a dark and twisted underbelly from the very start of the Crescent Hotel. Its evolution of high class and high demand luxury hotel for the rich, famous and elite to spend quiet, relaxing and fabulous holidays, to become an iconic part of the town and the state, to eventually becoming a part of supernatural history, not just for the town and state, but to become an anomaly, to be labelled the most haunted hotel and landmark in America. And now with the technology advances of the 21st century, the world. I hadn't heard of this hotel as I'm not from America, but when this was brought to my attention, I just had to delve myself into the landmark and find out everything, and I mean everything. I love to be thorough in my research, so history and lore with facts backing it up is a comfort for me. You may be wondering why I've picked this, as there isn't a movie strictly based on this hotel, but there are many, many influences and stories that have been brought to life by imaginative storytellers over the years and show the world that there is some, if not more, darkness in the past of others' realities than you could ever imagine. All stories have come from some sort of experience. You can see that some ideas and stories have obviously used this hotel and the personal experiences of the people over the years, the decades even, of this hotel. Used in the stories brought to life in film and TV, they have used the concept of this hotel and its darkness to reimagine their own retelling of hauntings, of evil, and the forces of unknown that we as humans find so interesting and so captivating that we must ourselves devour everything that we can and find. We have seen this with a whole lot of writers such as Stephen King. I have no doubt that he hasn't just used his home state of Maine for creating his stories, but used experiences and folkloric events from places such as the Crescent Hotel and some of his larger projects that have been brought to life in the big screen like The Shining and 1408, to name a few. Using these types of events and stories to enrich your own imagination, well, it's brought us images that remain as iconic as the original, as the origin. Yet Mr. King has said it was another hotel that was the inspiration, but you cannot fault the direction that Mr. Kubrick went down when creating the masterpiece of darkness that was and still is The Shining. Movies based on or have a lot of similarities with and why. So again, like The Shining is supposed to be another hotel called the Stanley Hotel, but we're going to compare the similarities to the Crescent Hotel and The Shining, not just as in the book, because the book and obviously in the adaptation to movie is different, slightly different. They're both very amazing pieces of work and history, very, very iconic in horror and in Hollywood. So The Shining was apparently again not based on the Crescent Hotel. To the author, he had a bad dream in another hotel called the Stanley Hotel in 1974, where he stayed in the room 218 apparently, and came up with the idea. Yet the Crescent Hotel with the creepy vibes and where it's situated and the lore and history says something else to everyone who has watched the movie and knows about the Crescent. So maybe you like to see it's based on an event, but you clearly are bending the truth. The hotel vibes in the movie adaptation by Stanley Kubrick is very Crescent Hotel, right up to the hotel and where it is situated. The fabulous, and also the fabulous gatherings and the beautiful ballrooms, the weird and eerie vibe. Guests seem to never be the same again after spending their time in the Crescent Hotel. Again, Mr. Stephen King was an idol of mine for many, many years, and after the past few years and his actions, I finally took my rose-tinted glasses off and realised he isn't who I thought he was. That I'm not giving a dig at Mr. Stephen King, I'm just saying he's saying it's about one hotel when it's clearly he's taking it from somewhere else as well. Because you don't just take it usually from one place, you take it from many. Good writers always do. For me, The Shining, the mood, the vibrations of how this has been adapted in the big screen has more creepy darkness than the similarities with the Crescent. And all its own backstory, it bleeds through, let's just say that. And from the experiences of people from the town throughout the years and the many guests who have stayed there, feel a similar vibe to The Shining. The Stanley Hotel has its own paranormal following, but it's in no way holds a light to the Crescent Hotel, the most haunted hotel, as is the Crescent. And I don't think many, if do, at all. House on Haunted Hill. Images from the original and the remake both have their better attributes and both have an eerie feel to them. Shadows and figures being seen where people were experimented on and tortured by the treatments, all of which that went on under Baker's ownership. No one clearly knows exactly what that monster did to the people he managed to lure to his clinic and extort with dangerous and lethal doses of concoctions he knew nothing about, what they did, and how they would actually react with different people, even though the original concoction killed 5 people, the 5 test subjects, without the carbolic acid, but he did this without a medical license. Some sort of butcher again. The doctors portrayed in House and Haunted Hill performed secret experiments and treatments on very sick and ill patients. And because they were there for many other reasons and had little to no family involvement, he got away with it. And then this was taken out by his own patients. There are plenty of stories like this on TV shows and in movies all over the place, all over the decades of movies are based on facts from the past before they have proper places to test. It was never good. And Baker did this for many years, and even when he was banned from doing so, he found loopholes in how to continue his work, making him go from a member of his own freak show to a serial killer in a blink of an eye. Do I think he has more than 40 odd victims under his belt? Most likely, yes. No one will ever know, as a lot of his patients died on site, but also they died on the way home or a few weeks later in crippling agony and out of pocket. House on Haunted Hill will show how the spirits remained there, whether they could or could not move on. It seemed that they were there to warn people from coming into the building, as he was still there and he was still very aware that he could do some damage from beyond the grave. Some items were found buried around the Crescent Hotel of the times when Baker was in charge of the hotel, and some questionable jars of human remains as he experimented on corpses of the victims that had passed away on site. And again, this man was no doctor or coroner. He was just a man that seemed to think he was above all, and this made him a mad doctor, and like the mad doctor in House and Haunted Hill. A movie in which they did a backstory on Baker would be good, and showing some of the actual lore and history of this man and what he did could easily be adapted into a true crime horror story, even a slasher movie within the right with the right people, the right writers, the best writers and producers. I have some ideas of my own. Contact me via email below. Lol. At Blumhouse, I know you could totally give us a scare from truth, from beyond the grave, make us afraid again of what is lurking in the dark places make it so, Mr. Blum? 1408, again supposed to be based on the hotel that Mr. King stayed in 1974 after he got his nightmare, yet the room that has all the activity of the paranormal is the room of 208. Where in the building of the hotel, it started tragically when an Irish stonemason fell to his death. That was Michael. Here, a woman thought to be with child out of wedlock jumped to her death to prevent shame in her and her family. That people see a shadow of the mist falling at the same time every day apparently, and this is a cold shiver and skin crawl part of the hotel that people have claimed to feel uneasy, and if someone is walking over their grave. In 1408, John Cusack goes to stay in the infamous hotel, and we see how the room and the paranormal interact with him and scare the crap out of him. As he is a non-believer, do I believe in ghosts? Not really, but I do believe in energy and where it goes after we pass. Then I have no idea. I would like to think there is a piece of us that stays behind as a comfort to the ones who have to live without us. Hauntings are when the energy is bored and they want to troll you. Some people may just be a dark force or so and cannot move on due to unfinished business. They speak about this in Supernatural. If you don't move on, you become vengeful and you end up going from Castle the Friendly Ghost to evil, vengeful poltergeists. Sometimes I'm gonna kill every last one of you ghosts in a matter of seconds. It takes time for a spirit to evolve from its first entity to poltergeist levels of fuck no. But if trapped in a place that was hell on earth while living, imagine being trapped there forever with no ability to move on to the next phase. Kingdom Hospital, again, is another Stephen King project. It's a mini-series. It's based on another plane of existence from the living hospital and how some special individuals can see and be part of both worlds and how the dead are amongst the living. I felt very Norman Clinic for this show, looking back, because it's one of my favourites, actually, because it was a wee bit different to what Stephen King usually does. It was still dark, but it had aspects that people would most likely come to a conclusion themselves because our imaginations and our brains are, well, magnificent. How both the living and the dead and unconscious comatose explored the halls, and you saw different lives and different outcomes from different perspectives on who was telling the story, who was narrating it. And their part, I always think when I see this, if the walls could talk, the stories they could tell, the decades of secrets and lies, the happiness and the sad, the old buildings and the old relics, what they would have to say. Depending on who had narrated each episode or the person the story was based upon in each episode, the hospital changed to how the storyteller was portraying their life and their time there. I also get a lot of Rose Red vibes, which again, Stephen King, mini-series, and there was also a movie that was a prequel where this house had a lot of mystery, trauma and death that happened there to the people who lived there and also guests who lived there and things. Just a lot of strange occurrences that happened in the home, and the home ended up it stayed in the family, but no one wanted to live in it basically, so it ended up really run down, and a team of scientists who deal with paranormal end up going in because they want to obviously meet the mistress of the house, who was the wife of the owner, who apparently still roamed. It was like she was tied to the house because she just randomly disappeared. Sorry, spoiler if you haven't seen it. It's really, really old though. It's like, what, 25-year-old maybe the movie, maybe 20-year-old, but obviously it's a book as well. So the kind of, she disappears one day when she's old. She just walks and it's like her life and pictures, and then she just disappears. A lot of the walls in the Rose Red movie miniseries, whatever you want to call it, the Crescent Hotel has red walls. I noticed that, and a lot of the docu-series I was watching has bright red walls. So did Rose Red and the inside. I know it's probably the style for that time would be to have these kind of blood red oxblood walls. Gave it a kind of, again, another creepy feel, like you're stuck in time. And she just disappears, like I said. It's like she went to another dimension. Like the house is not just a house, it's kind of like an entity, like tying the dimensions together. You don't know where they go, but every spirit, every person who's died in the house stays there. They can't move on. They're literally tied there, and they literally are there as a one system. A lot of the ones who go there, because the people that go there go with special gifts, and you see a lot of people going to the Crescent Hotel even now who are, maybe we spoke about this on the Twitch stream with Medusa and Batnugget69, that some people have more empathic, I don't want to say powers, they just have a gift where they're more empathic to certain things. They can feel things differently. People with autism, such as myself, you can either have lack of empathy where you have none whatsoever, or you can be like my son and myself where you have it all and it hits you like a wave and there's nothing you can do about it. That's kind of like what they have in Rose Red, where they bring all these people who have different gifts, see if they can bring forth the spirits for this college lecturer who wanted her claim to fame of meeting the ghosts and the spirits of Rose Red. And that's what it kind of feels like when people go to the Crescent Hotel. They want to interact a lot of the time with Michael. For some reason, women want to be around Michael. I do not know why. Because apparently he steals jewellery and moves it. So who the fuck knows? I always joked and said maybe he was stealing and that wasn't him falling to his death, that he ended up being taken out because he was doing things he shouldn't do. But Rose Red has a lot of things like that as well. Very, very, very similar to the spirits that inhabit, obviously, the Crescent Hotel are similar to the ones in Rose Red. The building itself, as I said, from videos taken, very daunting. You get to see an overwhelming urge to question what is this place and we need to go in here. I've never been here, yet the stories and the experiences and the history of this place makes me want to visit here once in my life. I want to have my own experience, if that makes sense. I think there are people similar, like I said, to myself, that feel things different, that just seem to be more in tune with the unknown. Some people find that creepy, whereas I feel a comfort in knowing that I do feel things others may not. And I do experience things different, and things like death and moving on. I see things in ways I cannot describe unless you also feel them too. The pictures from the top down showing what looks like a building in the sky, as Baker described as his clinic, as the cure for cancer in the sky. You see the atmosphere around the roof. And then this is a movie called A Cure for Wellness that came out in 2017 that literally, I couldn't believe it, and I was doing my research. I was like, I've seen that movie. I've seen it. And then when I watched the trailer, I was like, yeah, I've definitely seen that movie. And then by doing all the research of this, it's basically a wealthy rich man leaves his life, basically, and goes to this clinic in Europe, in the Swiss Alps for R&R. And his people want him back because he sends a letter that says that it's a cure for wellness. This is a treatment centre, basically, that helps people that are sick. And again, it's a very luxurious spa, and the people in it seem to be happy, seem to be living a better life there than they were in the outside world where they had their other life. So they send someone to bring this gentleman back, and shit starts to happen to him even from when he arrives. He ends up in an accident and he ends up having to stay at the place. And then they start giving him this tincture, this cure for wellness that they make on site. Norman Baker? Yes. Very Norman Baker. The centre looking down, apparently no one ever leaves, as if the cure doesn't exist once you leave. The cure, I think, is the building, or that's what they're trying to say, that your life is different by being there, and leaving would only make you become ill again. Something that Norman, I think, tried to do, because there is a few people who had multiple doses of that concoction that he was putting into them with the carbolic acid. If it did work for some people, they'd think like the side effects of the burning and feeling like shit were just, the cancer dying, and then they feel a wee bit better, so they'd get more and more and more. So it would become like an addiction and they have to stay there. And that's what this clinic is like. They just want people to stay there and not want to leave. You've pretty much given up your life for them, and it's all sorts of cultish vibes and the way people act as well. Again, it's very similar, like I said, to Norman's clinic. It was laid out so if you could stay, you would. If you were there only once for cancer cure, you stayed or you left that day. The patients who died after the treatments at the clinic were usually the ones that he would do experiments on after death. We have no clue why he did this or what was the reason he thought this was acceptable, but he did it, and much of his research was used for him to expand the enterprise and change the tincture and treatments. Now he had no medical qualifications or a degree, so how in the fuck would he know what would be the best course of action? He wasn't a scientist. He toured with a travelling circus, for fuck's sake, and performed hypnotism. Not hypnotherapy, by the way, just the illusion you were being hypnotised and could be subservient to him and hold them there as if the clinic was a cure for them, and if they left, well, that's the twist, no one leaves. The rich man, like I said, they send someone to retrieve him. They said there are no prisoners, but you can't leave. But choosing to leave and actually leaving doesn't happen. Again, Norman created a clinic at the Crescent Hotel in a way people wouldn't want to leave. It was a place where they received treatments in a luxury spa resort and in the magical Eureka Springs with all the attributes of luxury and a medical atmosphere. People could find peace and be cheered up, as the place had a horrible interior design of what looked like a freak show circus. As he said, people who were dying needed to laugh. Well, you were laughing, mate, as you had their money and their lives in your hands, as you play healer and doctor. This is what you see in the movie, creepy instincts of people feeling tied to a place and not themselves. They had a treatment that apparently detoxifies the body, but apparently the clinic in this movie has such darkness, 200 years of odd things going on that they said doesn't go on anymore yet. There's a mysterious shit that happens after dark. The staff telling the people they are more sick than they are, making them believe that they have to be there, such as the posters for Norman that he created and spent $1 million on to show that the clinic at the Crescent Hotel was the only place that could save them, and it was their only hope. It's wonderful here in the movie that all the experiments and hallucinations are there to control the patients and keep them there. That there is no cure, as they have created all of this and made the patients worse than they were, as did Mr. Baker with his terminally ill cancer patients, giving them false hope and belief that they would miraculously get better and become cancer-free. Yet his concoction caused more issues and more patients died in agony due to the ingredients used in the end of making Mr. Baker, the silent serial killer, walking around in plain sight, using the clinic as a front for his sick and twisted fascination of being this higher being, a god, yet all he did was dupe people with their last will, their last hope, and their last of their life. This movie, I felt really honoured and honed into the cure. Mr. Baker held at ransom for people who could afford to have this, while others did not. He blamed the American Medical Association for a lot of things, and that if they had his cure, they would monetize it. Yet he did this, and people didn't wake up to this. Gullible. People have become obsessed with the unknown and may come to this hotel to see if they can experience what others have, and it keeps people being attracted to this little town with the mystery that surrounds the hotel. So it's not surprising we can see a lot of the influences in other movies over the years that have used other people's experiences of their stay in the hotel, and with the evidence that some have found while staying there and have documented it. Experiences of the people who have stayed in the hotel. Will we go all ghost facers, shall we? We as guests and many who have went on the ghost tours of the hotel, as this seems to be what attracts people to the hotel, the tours, to see if they experience anything. Now, this gave me Prince of Darkness feels when the entity got out and then strange things started to happen. EMFs go off the chart apparently on high floors, to the ones where Michael felt his death while the building itself was being built around the room 218 or 208 218. Also, you hear the pitter patter of small children and voices as if they're playing. Children having fun. Again, children in horror movies, are they ever having fun? Well, at your expense, yes. The small children. A small child fell from the staircase. She fell to her death from the 4th floor to the basement. She was said to be around 5 or 6. Again, Rose Red, a child, disappeared and was never found again, yet her spirit and voice lured people to their deaths. But even on the other side, the voice seemed to be as if it was happy children playing, even in the darkness. There seems to be some light here for a child, a forever playground. A typewriter in the morgue, as apparently that's what you hear sometimes, was him writing letters to families, or someone writing letters to families, sending money, demanding more money even after they died, so extorting the families as well. And again, he didn't get much of a punishment, meaning they probably weren't aware at this time about the severity of his actions with the patients that had trusted him to save and cure them. In the dining area, there seems to be figures in the background of a young woman, whether this is from the hotel, very shining like ballroom and parties in Jack's mind, or that he was within worlds, but you can see a womanly figure in the window, shapes of people again, not sure if it's more of an illusion or if it's just like as if it happened in The Shining, when Jack is at certain breaks in his psyche, that makes him more susceptible to see things as he wants, not as they are. The bodies of the dead patients were stored in the hotel's meat locker until where the meat locker is now. It was actually all ice before. Until the families paid, they would then release the bodies. So even when he removed organs and he experimented on the bodies and stuff, they weren't reunited until they made payment. Again, like I said, blocks of ice were used to keep things cool before refrigeration was put in. So not only did he take out the organs from the deceased patients, he demanded a hefty bill from the family before they would release them, so the dead would be trapped and unable to move on and most likely stuck there, meaning many spirits would not be crossing over as they were in a place they suffered and tormented by. Baker and his clinic in life and also in death. Jars that are on display in the hotel morgue are from when Baker had his clinic. Not sure if they were the ones that were found buried or they were the ones that they just found, but they keep them on display in the morgue in the basement. In the chilled room, you get to be locked in here, and again, many have felt and witnessed these cold spots. Again, it's a chilled room, but chills, noises they cannot make out, screams faintly, depending on what part of the hotel you go to. People find they hear whimpering and moaning in the basement. An encounter I watched, it was faint, but you could still hear a whimpering. But it's like I've always said, whimpering and moaning in a dungeon isn't always for pain and suffering, but hey. Again, the amount of people in the building over time, they've seen things like a man sitting with a book reading to children in the dining area with another man standing over him or a dark figure standing over him. People have seen strange phenomena they can't explain in that area as well. Certain equipment brings up better quality of images, especially temperature type hardware and equipment that shows like energy, temperature, changes. That is an object and an entity you cannot see with the naked eye. It can be difficult. So with the right equipment, you can catch things either by sound or video. Apparently there's a ghost by the name of Theodora and she was quite angry. She's an angry entity. She was a nurse and she tends to frequent the hotel around the fourth floor, it seems, which is like kind of rooms like your 1419. And she also slams suitcases shut. And apparently at night, people have heard her real beds, the old school beds you'd hear, like they're kind of rickety and crickety and stuff. You would hear them throughout the night down the hallway. Some guests have said they've felt her like heavy shoulders as if someone is putting their weight down on them. Now, if she was one of the nurses who dealt with the patients who had bad side effects who were put in the psychiatric ward, who probably could have had psychiatric issues before they had this carbolic acid concoction and they were put away for the safety of the rest of the guests and patients. A lot of the time it's because of the side effects and what they actually did to the people that didn't want to show what can happen, because now we do know that if there is something underlying in your body and you take something, a vaccination for example, that if it's there it can be triggered basically. So you never know what her job actually involved. She could have been there pushing people down to be sedated. She could have been pushing people down for more experiment. You never know what she was actually doing. And maybe she was angry. Maybe she liked her job. Maybe she didn't like her job. Who the fuck knows? But people feel a lot of heaviness and pressing down. So again, like I said, heaven knows what she was in charge of. When the cure didn't work, they had to be separated, as I said. Baker separated patients that weren't doing great after treatments. Again, didn't want people to see the side effects or the how everybody wasn't getting the results that he claimed to everybody be getting. Again, all in different parts of the hospital. The room 419 is where some felt negative energy, negative vibes when staying in this room. Like people have said that they have felt sadness and fear, it's an overwhelming urge that just happens, that they could be fine one minute and then they feel it the next. When I said the morgue still is in the tour, it's because it's still partially intact from when Norman Baker had the hotel as his clinic/hospital. It still has the autopsy table in there. Remember, there were medical staff in the clinic, but he himself wasn't a doctor and he was banned to practice anything, yet they found out he was experimenting in the basement. People seem to think only corpses, but he had that wing again for the psychiatric cases and you never know. because, again, you never know if he had, because there's such a thing where you can have like a contract that you have your DNR, which is do not resuscitate. Even back then, people may have had a sort of thing of you sign a document saying that after you take this, there could be like, if there is any complications, then you stay in the hospital. They could have signed their life away. You never know. And again, this could be the plot in a story. You never know that you're signing your life, not just your savings, but your life away to this man. And no wonder he was extorting the families for any additional money that he could get out of them, so he could actually clean up his own mess by giving the body back. So he is very intelligent in that sense, but he's not very intelligent in him going back to the same role when he's been banned from it multiple times. A certain mirror in the hotel on the hallway, if you're lucky, when you take a picture in front of it, you can see things in the mirror. Some have not, but some have, and there's been a few pictures that have documented this. In the hotel, they have a wall with lots of old photographs, and here is where it looked very eerie, but again it is because you're taking a step back in time. You're stuck in time. As you see how the hotel has evolved and how throughout the years there is something incredibly dark and mysterious, even to see what the hotel looked like in its heyday when it first opened. There's a picture, the oldest picture ever. There is a creepy, dark feel, but you do get that with a lot of Victorian photographs because of the way photographs were taken. They kind of looked like pictures rather than looked like art rather than actual photograph. It's very, again, incredibly dark, mysterious, even to see. And this kind of reminds me of The Shining with the picture of Jack in their time, not just his time and our time, but their time, everything looking exactly the same. Like he was frozen in time, as these photos are like representing the hotel, frozen in times where the hotel saw some stuff. This is on the fourth floor and shows the different times where the hotel changed hands and evolved into something different each time. Because the hotel itself technically has lived different lives. It's been a school, it's been a hotel, a luxury hotel and spa, it's been a clinic, it's been a hospital, it's been multiple educational facilities, it's been a hotel, it's lay empty. There's been a lot of times where it's actually evolved, so seeing the photos is a blast for the past, but also gives you an eerie, creepy feel, because you're literally stepping into other people's lives from another time. Simpler time. Some parts of the hotel look like they have gone back in time, which again could be the feelings some get when exploring. So some say there was a child who accidentally died after falling from a set of stairs between the age of 4 and 6. I've said that before. Back then, basically, children didn't have as much supervision. It sounds terrible, but they didn't, because there was technology and things not the same as it is today. Kids would go exploring. Even when I was a kid, you would go exploring. You would go walking about and you would go wanting to find an adventure somewhere. But this child fell off a staircase from the fourth floor to the basement. So that is a hefty drop. And the way buildings are built then compared to what they are now, that would have been death. And again, child running about playing, people hear that. Again, there's another child that has died in the hotel. He died of appendicitis. His name is Becky, and he was the son of the school's principal, I think they said. He died in the hotel, so hearing it, children's noises of laughter, again, if you're stuck there because you died there and you wouldn't actually progress in age, you would have a hotel that you were stuck in time. You could see our time and everybody else and everybody and how the world has evolved, but you would still be stuck in your time. So you would be a child playing, and hearing voices like that wouldn't be uncommon or unusual. There is a lot of original details in the hotel, which also captivates the whole feel, including an old elevator, staircases and things like that. There's been a lot of tourist photographs and guest photographs showing entities and random oddities. That's where people end up seeing it for themselves. Like, when before we had our technology and our technological advances we have now with our phones, we have our photos straight away and the software's different and things like that. Back then, you take your photos, whether you had your own camera or you developed your own film, etc. You'd have to send your photos away to get developed and stuff. So you wouldn't see things until week, maybe months, or even years later, depending on, when you looked at the photos or if you kept them out in display. Or maybe relatives in the future see something in the photo and what the fuck's that? And then you can obviously look through, like, using a magnifying glass and stuff, scanning pictures into, like, computer and thing like that. Again, a lot of things are uncovered later on. A woman dressed all in black walking up the stairs looking very Victorian. That's one of the captures images. I see a type of mourning dress, and this was worn by many women who lost their husbands or children. They would don this apparel to show that they were still in mourning and basically to leave them the fuck alone. The hotel itself has a ghostly mist, like apparitions show up in many photos over the years that cannot be explained and are caught in a lot of cameras. Again, very rose red, very The Shining. There is a photo of women in white, kind of like a nightgown looking downwards, that has been captured also by the hotel at a window outside looking in. It kind of gives me like it looks like a Roman statue type of thing, but it's actually not. And people have seen that in the dining room area. The mist has said to have been captured or seen by many, more frequent. Not sure if it's like a veil between the living and the dead, kind of like the others, where the mist protected the family from moving on and that they were stuck and unable to admit that they were dead. This mist surrounding and falling from the hotel is where many visitors have saw the young woman falling, looking as if she was jumping or she was pushed because they see a dark figure standing over her or standing where she was originally standing. So jumping to her death or pushed, we don't really know. Everyone who sees it says that they see her falling and then disappear. And then there's this weird mist and coldness again. The hotel is rather tall and giant and it looks as if it's sitting in between our world and the skies above. The girl with her face in the wall, I see a young woman again, but soft features from the photograph. As the walls are a deep red colour, it is similar to an eerie dark energy, not knowing who she is or what business she had at the Crescent. She has shown up in a lot of photos over the years. At the jacuzzi area, there is an apparition that looks like a pickaxe again, similar tools that may have been used by a stonemason or even a doctor or something in the hotel, or even a patient. You never know what to expect and what happened behind closed doors when it changed hands over the years. Some women want the room 219 with Michael, as this is where he died, where he fell and died. While working in the building, women apparently want to have an encounter with him. I say we ghost fetish there, but Michael moves jewellery around or it goes missing again. Was he killed while building the hotel, or was he caught doing something he shouldn't have been? Again, klepto poltergeist, and yes, the poltergeist movie had things moving, apparitions appearing, and entities reaching out to the family beyond the grave. So another movie added along with many. So is there any entities you wouldn't mind meeting to go bumping the night with, or any apparitions you want to experience? I think the mist reminds me of Ghostbusters when they switch off the containment field in the first movie and the ghosts are literally popping out everywhere and just lurking around. The mist and the Michael rumours of women wanting to interact with him, each to their own and all that. I think we all want to know, where do we go and where can we stay when the time comes. But having been to many places where we have felt our own skin crawl and shivers to cold spots, dark icky feelings, well, in places that are we going where we shouldn't? Should we go here? Is there a place that we go to that we don't even know we are at? So we are. That gives us the warning that we are not in Kansas anymore. Is it a perfect normal feeling we could be so close to another dimension and realities without us even realizing it? Energy goes somewhere and the Crescent Hotel is no different. Whether you believe or not, I would say I believe in energy and I believe things happen for a reason. And I would love to have an experience like this. Everyone believes to an extent. And this hotel was named the most haunted in the whole of America for a reason. Have you ever stayed or spent any time at the Crescent Hotel? Would you ever spend time at the hotel? Let me know in the comments below. What movies do you feel have been using the Crescent Hotel and its history for inspiration, and how many serial killer entities have been created by stories of the hotel and Norman Baker? So audience here at Confessions from the Darkside, do you believe? Have you experienced something supernatural? Has it made you want to investigate? Let us know in the comments below. Let's investigate Winchester style. Let's devour all the lore and let's go find ourselves some ghosts. I am Darcy Darkness. Let's go overlook the Crescent Hotel. If you like content like this, remember to go check out our Confessions from the Darkside social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Amazon Music, Spotify and Buzzsprout. Let us know what you think over on our social media platforms and let's get chatting about this topic, all the topics. Let's grow our community and spread how awesome the horror community actually is. If you want to get to know us as individuals, then you can check us out in our links below. I am Lady Darcy Darkness. My channel is called Behind the Mash Reviews and you can check me out on YouTube, Instagram, Twitch. Lunar has his channel, it's Lunar X Rising. He has YouTube, Twitch and Instagram. If you need to reach out to us at any point, if you want to talk about this podcast as a whole, you can contact us at confessionsfromthedarkside@gmail.com or myself, which is Lady Darcy, which is Behind the Mash Reviews @gmail.com. The spelling is on screen and yes, it's difficult. No, I'm not going to change it and I love it. deal with it. Anyway, lunarxrising@gmail.com is Lunar's email address if you want to reach out to him too. Is there any dark, mysterious places that you think may be good for a deep dive, or maybe something untapped that should or could be a good idea for a story? Let us know, and you can email me on the addresses that I've just mentioned and let us get investigating. That was Overlooking the Crescent Hotel. Horrific historical events that have changed the lives of many and shocked the minds of all. Take care, everyone. See you in the next one. Later.